Have you always wanted to start your own podcast but don't know where to start? Don't have the right equipment? Don't have a place to host your new podcast? If this is you, then you probably haven't heard of Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain how Anchor works. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You are listening to the Centaku Media podcast, a source for sharing interests beyond the scope of anime because we're in the center of other otaku interests. Hey everyone, this is Sandra Chan, your host of the Centaku Media Journal podcast. It is probably June 23rd, 2021, and thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time, if you've listened to this before, welcome back. And for those that are new to Centaku Media, it is a little section on the internet where I share opinions and news and all kinds of neat stuff when it comes to the otaku sphere. If you're into anime, gaming, and especially other Asian pop culture. So if that's your mood, this is a place to be, and you are free to follow along if you are, especially on the casual side of each fandom or subculture, as they like to call it. But anyway, so yeah, thank you for tuning in, and this is like the second episode from my sudden hiatus. Where this episode should have been released back in March, but since I'm behind, other things, came up. I couldn't keep up with it, so I kind of was like, I'll get to it eventually. But now we're trying to catch up, and I do have some news to talk about that are actually, it's a little dated, but it's kind of like, since we're like at the halfway point of 2021, it probably would be a good idea to like recap on some of the stories that happened at the beginning of the year. So it'd be kind of like a retrospective kind of thing. And I already talked about some news articles that were relevant at the beginning of the year, and I have a few more to talk about, but I know we're gonna like at this point it's irrelevant, and some of it's kind of just like, oh yeah, this also happened, so be sure to check it out. So a lot of it is streaming additions to a lot of streaming services, because I got a few go over. Some of them I know about already, but we'll go over it towards the end of the episode. But some other news we're gonna talk about E3 news. And remember last year, for those that have stuck around since then, last year I did like an hour and a half long episode that was mostly E3 news, and I tried to talk about as much as I could. And also I think I also did an Anime Expo episode that long too, but Anime Expo, they're doing things a little different this year. Well, no, Anime Expo Light, of course. This is their second year doing Anime Expo Light due to the circumstances we've had in the last year and a half. But now, thankfully, things are looking up that this will hopefully be the last Anime Expo Light event, and they'll be back in official capacity next year, which I'm hoping to go next year, fingers crossed. But like, that's just me just saying things, but I'm hoping that will be the case next year. But like I said, we'll see what happens. But yeah, so next episode will definitely be full Anime Expo news, and also some other stuff I couldn't fit in this episode, so stay tuned for that. And also, for those that are new, I do stream on Twitch. If you actually enjoy this podcast, be sure to check out the Centaku Media channel on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Centaku Media. We go live now. As of recording this, we stream on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So on Wednesdays, we stream at 5 p.m. and it's usually 2 hours on each day. Just depending on how much we get done, and maybe 3 hours as of now. So starting Wednesday on approximately June 30th, we'll be returning to Shenmue 3. I had to put that game on hold for various reasons I can go into a little bit in a blog post. I finished Final Fantasy X finally as of June as well, so we'll be choosing a new game to play on Thursdays and Fridays, which will be at 9 p.m. And also Anything Goes Gaming, which is originally a plan I had earlier in the year. I had to twist it a little bit, so Anything Goes at the end of each day. So I'll play my selected game, my main game, for a couple of hours, and in the last hour, I guess going on to hour 3, I'll play something that doesn't really require a whole lot of effort. So let's see how that goes moving forward. So be sure to follow and turn on notifications, which is at twitch.tv/Centaku Media. And also for the game, since I'm finished with Final Fantasy X, stay tuned for the next game I'll play. I might have said it already in the stream, but also be sure to check out centakumedia.com for a blog post announcing the next game. Anyway, so that's enough Centaku Media news. I'm going to go ahead and cut my rambling short, and we'll talk about anime, gaming, and other interests news. So the first anime news story that we're going to talk about is something that I've been very excited for a very long time, and more so in the past year due to the circumstances that were beyond our control. And of course, you know what I'm talking about, where things had to be either canceled or postponed, but ultimately postponed. And one of them is the most recent release of the Gundam Hathaway's Flash movie in Japan. And what I mean by that, it was originally supposed to be released last July. But, of course, with Japan under a state of emergency at the time, it got postponed indefinitely up until this year, which was finally released at the beginning of June. It was actually supposed to be released like in mid-May, towards the end of May, but it was only postponed by a couple of weeks. But we finally got part 1 of the latest movie trilogy in the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise, especially in the Universal Century era. And for those that are unfamiliar with Hathaway's Flash, it was originally a novel released back in 1989 that never got localized in English up until now, which will get an anime form about 32 years later. So this is very exciting news for all Gundam fans, especially those that missed out on the novel for whatever reason. And it's actually broken quite a few records in Japan. It's like, I think it surpassed the Char's Counterattack, which technically this is like the follow-up of Char's Counterattack for obvious reasons, which I'm going to explain right now. Which Hathaway's Flash, Hathaway is the name of Bright Noah's son, Hathaway Noah, and I want to talk a little bit about the plot, which is, well, I guess I don't want to talk too much about it because it would spoil it, and especially there are a lot of people that are not familiar with the Gundam franchise as I am, and of course, it's a little disclaimer. Disclaimer. Not everything I know is about Gundam. I do know quite a bit about Gundam. There's still some I don't know about. There's still some I haven't watched yet, and some I refuse to watch. So, but if you curious of where to start as far as watching Gundam, be sure to check out centakumedia.com. I'll link it in the show notes, but there's a 3-part series where I cover all the Gundam series that were released from 1979 to 2000 to 2000 to 2010s, and then we got the OVAs and movies, which is the bare minimum of what you need to know about Gundam and what order to watch them in. Of course, a lot of people are going to recommend Universal Century, but it's up to you whether you want to stick with modern Gundam series or where there's less effort put into it. Because Universal Century era is huge, and of course, this is the latest entry, at least in anime forms, latest entry in the anime fandom concerning Gundam and the Universal Century. But anyway, so yeah, Hathaway is the son of Bright Noah. Bright Noah, of course, he's the longest running character in the Gundam Universal Century era, and he's the one that's responsible for the Bright Slap meme, turning young men into soldiers. Guys, I'm pretty sure Kira could have used that. But anyway, we're not gonna trash Gundam C right now. That's for another time, if not maybe another episode by itself. But anyway, Hathaway's Flash. The good news about it is that we'll be able to see it outside of Japan a lot sooner, and it's probably next week by the time you hear this episode. So, Netflix had their Geeked live stream, which, Netflix, they have a Twitter account where they cover everything geeky, like sci-fi, anime, fantasy, and all that stuff like that. But during their live stream, they revealed the English dub trailer for Hathaway's Flash and the release date of July 1st. So I'm like, that's incredible that they're able to show that soon, because I was expecting at least this fall, but That's basically 4th of July weekend, so that's huge. And also, I was going to say, I totally forgot, but I got to say it now. If you are curious about Gundam, the movie trilogies for the original Mobile Suit Gundam series is also up on Netflix as I record this, as well as Char's Counterattack, which Char's Counterattack introduces Hathaway to everyone. So, again, that order is important. So you got the original Mobile Suit Gundam that basically touches upon the whole conflict, and then Char's Counterattack, which introduces Hathaway and then kind of concludes that initial 1-year war, vendetta between Char and Amuro. And then you got Hathaway, who is on his own for whatever reason that I'm not going to go into to spoilers. And I don't even know much about it. Like, I actually know the ending of it, but we'll talk about that later. But anyway, so the film opened in Japan, as you know, and it was delayed previously, and it was also originally planned to play in 214 theaters, which is a franchise record high. And some theaters will have screened it in 4D and Dolby Cinema on opening day. And also Dolby Cinemas will also screen the first 15 minutes and 53 seconds of Char's Counterattack before the film, which again, like I said, is a primer to the whole thing. And also they have a limited edition Blu-ray release that went on sale on June 11th, and it's also sold over 53,000 copies as of recording this. So that's actually like setting pretty good records, especially in a post-pandemic era. So congratulations to the Hathaway's Flash team, and I'm really looking forward to watching it as soon as it's uploaded on Netflix. And actually I have the day off on the 1st, so I might actually wake up back at 3 a.m. just to watch it as soon as I can. So I'm really looking forward to it, so stay tuned for that. Next up in our anime news segment, which is actually still on the topic of Netflix, and this has actually been in the news in the making, or rather, a show in the making for the last few years. And when I speak of anime, I'm actually, in Netflix, I'm talking about Cowboy Bebop, the live-action adaptation of the 1998 anime series that we all know and love. And I know, like, people are kind of optimistic about it, but of course, it's a live-action adaptation of an anime series, so of course there's going to be some skepticism when it comes to this show, but it's very promising as this is the first cast involved. And I think I gotta read it. I'm not going to say anything because I might not be correct in that, but I do know for a fact in this article they confirmed that Yoko Kanno, who's the original music composer of Cowboy Bebop, she will be lending her talents for the live action soundtrack as well. So definitely something to keep an open mind about as this show airs this fall. So Netflix announced during their Geek Week live stream that its live action adaptation of Sunrise Cowboy Bebop anime will premiere this fall, and confirmed that Yoko Kanno is composing this series. The teaser video features the live action cast and the anime's opening theme song Tank by the Seatbelts. And the series stars John Cho as Spike Spiegel, Mustafa Shakir as Jet, Daniela Pineda as Faye, Alex Hassel as Fishers, and Elena Satine as Julia. And the rest of the cast includes Jeff Schultz as Chalmers, Jet's ex-partner, Tamara Tooney as Anna, Martian club owner, Mason Alexander Park as Gren, Anna's right-hand person, Rachel House, Mao, White Tiger's capo, and Trong as Shin, one of Fisher's twin henchmen, and Hoa Swande, I hope I pronounced that right, as Lin, one of Fisher's twin henchmen. And that's all the information available, but there is a trailer out for it on their, it was on their Twitter account as well, but I'm pretty sure it's on their YouTube account as well. So I'll be sure to look for it and link it in the show notes for your convenience. And that's all I have about any more Netflix stuff. I know there's like a whole bunch of Netflix stuff announced too, but I'll also be sure to point them everyone's way. And that is it for, big Netflix news. The next story we're going to talk about is a little bit long, and it's also the topic of politics, although it's not U.S. politics, which is, it's a mess right now. But this one, I think, is probably either is on level or if not worse than U.S. politics right now. And I probably shouldn't say that, but I will just put a disclaimer here that what I'm about to talk about is for educational purposes and does not reflect the views of Centaku Media. Although, like, I try to avoid politics altogether, whether it's U.S. politics or just any kind of thing. But of course, if it's relevant and interesting, I will try to talk about it, as long as it doesn't talk about the topic of putting people down. Like, if people are in support of rights that are intended to basically make people's life, a challenge, that's unnecessary. Any support of rules that make put unnecessary challenges to people's lives. I'm not for that, definitely. But like I said, this topic I'm about to talk about is actually interesting, and I will share it. And it was actually reported on Anime News Network because it includes well-known anime English voice actors. And this one is about a mobile game called Mr. Love Queen's Choice. And I keep seeing advertisements for this game, and I don't personally play it, but it's an otome game, but it's made by a Chinese-based mobile game company called Paper Games. And for the English dub, they had some voice actors, of course, like some of them are well known. This one in particular is Jonas Scott. So he provided the voice of one of the characters, but it wasn't until earlier this month he voiced his support of Taiwan, and because of that, the company parted ways with the voice actor due to their conflicting opinions about the situation. So I will go ahead and explain what's going on from the article. So Paper Games announced in a now deleted post on the Mr. Love Queen's Choice Facebook page that it would be ending its working relationship with voice actor Jonas Scott following his now deleted tweet supporting Taiwan. Scott wrote on Twitter that Taiwan is a country. In response, all of Scott's voiced lines from the game have been removed, and Scott voiced the character Victor in the game. The deleted Facebook post, the deleted Facebook post read, "Announcement on Mr. Love's Queen's Choice ending the cooperation with Victor's voice actor Jonas Scott. We are sorry to inform all players that Jonas Scott recently has released an online statement containing incorrect facts which we do not agree with. As a result, after careful considerations, Mr. Love Queen's Choice has decided to end the contract with Jonas Scott. All voice content by Jonas Scott will become unavailable, and we are sorry that this might affect the game experience. We are now in search of a new voice actor, and we will re-record and replace all voice material. As it will take time and resources to cast a new voice actor, sign a contract, and replace all voice contents, recently the relevant Victor stories will only be available in text. We are sorry for the inconvenience. Once again, we would like to apologize for the impact of changing the voice actor, and thank you for understanding and support." And the lines in the game were removed approximately 7 hours after the Facebook post, so they wasted no time on removing all his lines, made sure it was scrubbed of any of reference to him, but because of that statement he made. And also, in response to Scott's removal, voice actor Sean Triplock and I'm probably gonna butcher his last name, it's Joe Seja pronounced they would no longer work with the property. Effective immediately, I refuse any future offers to reprise as Kiro and hashtag MLQC unless Jonas Scott is allowed to return as Victor, Triplock wrote. I often mention that there are moments when you have to make a choice about whether the message you want to send is worth the sacrifice. To me, this one is. I won't support acts like this. I'm heartbroken, but I love/support Jonah more than I do a gig. I can replace the latter. And Seja also showed support for Scott, stating he would not return as Gavin until Scott is reinstated in the game. Lucian voice actor Bill Rogers announced he would be taking a break from social media posting until some things get sorted out. Voice actor Daryl J. Delphin, iridescent in Mr. Love's Queen's Choice, was confused when he first saw the news. I first saw Joe Seja's tweet and saw other tweets later, like Sean's, that helped me figure out the situation. And now I'm still very confused about why this is a problem at all. Politics aside, Jonas stated a fact and lost a job over it. He told Anime News Network. The official Discord server for the game is closed, and Scott issued an apology tweet on Friday. And Anime News Network has reached out to Paper Games for comment. And as far as I know, at least, I couldn't find any follow-up for it, but if I find it later, I'll be sure to link it one way or another. And also, for those that are curious about Jonas Scott, he previously voiced Joe in Skate the Infinity, and he was Lugosi in Beastars. Proponents to the One China principle seek reunification between Taiwan and China under the same sovereign state. This stance is opposed by supporters of the Taiwan independence movement, who seek to establish a Taiwanese identity separate from China. And also, the article mentions that other entertainers and performers that have run afoul of companies and entities that support the One China principle have met similar restrictions or saw their careers stymied. Japanese VTubers Kiryu Coco and Akai Hato's live streams originally included a segment where they revealed their channel's viewership demographics. Coco commented on their channel's viewership demographics by region. YouTube analytics list Taiwan and China as separate regions. Their streams were suspended for 3 weeks, and later controversy ended with Cover Corp graduating its China-based talent last year. Wow, so this is a whole mess. And again, like I said, China, again, is kind of a risky. Like I said, that's why I disclaimer that this is for educational purposes. So I try not to say anything about it, but China has been very sensitive about certain topics when it comes to their country. And I know a lot of people remember the controversy around the end of 2019 concerning the Hong Kong controversy, because to the best of my knowledge, I want to try to explain what happened. It's basically that China, or rather Hong Kong, was wanting to adapt a lot of China's policies, and a lot of people did not agree with that. So they protested, and of course they got their voice they tried to basically mute everyone. They punished protesters and anyone that said anything that spoke out against the idea of Hong Kong adapting China policies. They got punished in one way. And of course, the biggest controversy that a lot of people remember, especially if they're gamers and follow a lot of let's say Blizzard games, they remember that one Hearthstone player got banned from competitive play because he voiced his opinion of the Hong Kong revolution during an interview on a live stream, where also the game casters got suspended, or rather banned, because they had no opinion of it, but they just were at the wrong place at the wrong time, and then because of how sensitive the discussion was, they got punished for it too. But Blizzard also suspended him because of his views, and of course, they tried not to have anyone, especially in the sports scene, try not to get involved with politics, whether it's for rights or against rights or whatever. But apparently, people were pointing out that, hey, Blizzard, you've had people that supported certain other politicians, but you haven't done anything. You haven't even batted an eye. So why is this a huge deal? And of course, that kind of created some that created basically anti-fans of Blizzard Entertainment because of that. And so, a lot of people boycotted the company. They stopped playing, canceled their, deleted their Overwatch character, canceled their WoW subscription. It's kind of, how it was at the time. And, everything has gotten pushed to the side. Like that whole controversy, basically got pushed back because of, the coronavirus situation that we're in now. So, that a lot of people forgot about that. But now we're, coming up on this Taiwan situation. So, yeah, so this is basically another chapter of the whole trying to unify, China policies with countries that are actually trying not to be involved. But again, like I said, all of this has been, this is for educational purposes and speculation. Like I said, do not condone people supporting rights where it comes down to, when it comes to making their life a challenge when it's not necessary, when there's no reason to make it so. So that only thing I agree with. But otherwise, this is just for educational purposes. So please don't suspend me for just talking about this. So anyway, that I know that was technically an anime news segment, but that's actually a good segue to gaming news, as that is a mobile game. So like, I know some people disagree, say, well, it's not anime, it's a game. But still, again, Centaku Media, again, we talk about anything that's relevant in the spirit of anime, and maybe then some. But again, like I said, if that's something you do not agree with, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. And again, yeah, I think I've said, a little bit much, but you get the idea anyway. Because, I say this because I've had issues. People say, well, it's too video gamey. Centaku Media is too video gamey. And, of course, I've talked about that before, but we're not going to talk about that. Like I said, I've had a better viewpoint on it, and now it's covered more than I had before because, blow that noise. Anyway. Alright, so moving on to our gaming news. The first in our gaming news section includes a lot of some of the important announcements that came out of E3, and I guess some of them are important, some of them are not. And this one, to me, was not very important, and I actually totally forgot that this was going to happen. So, day 2 of E3, which was on a Sunday, they had their Square Enix in particular. They had their E3 presentation. Of course, this year too, E3 went digital compared to last year, although like things have gotten better. Still kind of iffy on whether to have an actual event, but that might be that it might come back next year. So like we'll see. Looking forward to an actual physical E3 event next year. But anyway, so Square Enix had their live stream E3 presentation on Sunday, and like I said, I forgot about it actually. Like I knew it was coming up, but something told me that don't make it don't make an effort to watch it, Sandro, because you're probably going to get really disappointed. And oh boy, I'm so glad I missed it. So actually what's funny is that actually maybe like an hour or two before the live stream or to start, I actually took a nap. I work on Sundays, but I always have this bad habit of taking a nap after I get off work, even though work day is not that long, but it is what it is. So I said, well, maybe if I wake up in time, I'll watch it. Like otherwise I'm kind of not too worried about it. So I took a nap, and I woke up like probably 10 minutes after the event ended, and I'm like, oh shoot, I totally missed the event. So someone told me, let me just look on my news sites and see what's going on. So the biggest thing that I was looking forward to, because a few weeks leading up to E3, that Square Enix released this new game that's from Team Ninja, and they said it's going to be a new Final Fantasy game, and I was like, I wonder what could that be. So of course, with Kingdom Hearts 3 done, finally released, Final Fantasy 7 Remake finally out, and then we're getting another chapter of the game, and then we got the Integrate release for the PS5 recently. Then basically Tetsuya Nomura, like, he really has something else now. Like, I mean, he's still working on whatever stuff of Final Fantasy 7 Remake, but like I said, well, let's see what else he has working on. Maybe he'll finally release that Final Fantasy X-3 or prequel that no one's asking for, but people should if they really enjoy Final Fantasy X and X-2 especially. I know there's more fans of X-2 for some reason than 10. But anyway, so that's what I was curious about, and even on my personal Twitter account said it has to be that game. It has to be. So, the game is called Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. And when I saw that, I didn't know what to think. Like, I don't know whether to be excited or disappointed. So, of course, it's going to be a disappointment, utter disappointment. Not because I missed it, but because I'm actually glad I missed it, but I'm disappointed that this is where we come to. And also what's sad is that Tetsuya Nomura is actually behind this game. So I'm going to explain why I'm disappointed. So, Team Ninja is developing this game for the PS4 and PS5, Xbox, every kind of Xbox that's out there in the PC. And the game is described as a bold new vision for Final Fantasy, and it's set to release sometime in 2022. And as of recording this, they had a demo out for a couple of weeks following the E3 announcement, but it's probably no longer available as you listen to this. And the reason why I'm disappointed because Tetsuya Nomura, I had no idea who was behind it. Like, I saw the announcement, And I was like, this is not what I wanted. And I read on Twitter that apparently Nomura's reasoning, or like his idea behind the game, is that he wanted a story of an angry man. And I'm like, do we have I think we have enough Final Fantasy games with angry men. And then I'm like, are you serious? I'm so sad. But anyway, I'm gonna talk about the game, a little bit more about the game, and let's try to curb my disappointment for like another minute. So the Square Enix describes Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. So it says, with the memory of their struggle buried deep in their hearts, Jack and his allies Ash and Jed burn with resolve to defeat chaos as they throw open the gates to the Chaos Shrine. Yet doubts remain. Are they truly the warriors of light the prophecy foretold? Step into a world of dark fantasy and revel in the exhilarating action-packed battles. So, basically, Final Fantasy Origin, as the title explains, is actually a prequel to the first Final Fantasy game. And Jack, if I remember correctly, or if anyone remembers correctly, Jack is actually the Warrior of Light's name. Because we always know him as the Warrior of Light. And of course, when you think of a Warrior Light, you think of the Warrior Light from Dissidia, and even, I'm just going to put this out there, just briefly mention that this original Warrior Light is also mentioned in 14, but I'm just going to leave it at that, because it's kind of spoilery. But yeah, the OG Warrior of Light, that's when you think of Warrior Light in Final Fantasy Origin, that's what comes to mind, at least in regards to the original Final Fantasy. But nowadays, when you think of Warrior of Light, you're thinking of Final Fantasy 14 players. But no, this is the OG Warrior of Light. So, from what we see in the trailer and the screen caps, the Warrior of Light basically looks like Corleone's from Final Fantasy 15. He has, shaven hair and a face similar to his. And everyone remembers that the OG Warrior of Light has no long hair. He has long hair basically flowing out from his helm, and people were like, this is the same Warrior of Light. So I'm pretty sure it's the same Warrior of Light. And when he's revealed, he has basically plain clothes, and everyone's so used, as being a Final Fantasy game, they usually have clothes that no one would, think of in this day of age, right? So of course, with Tetsuya Nomura, he's all about the belts, and and Yoshitaka Amano, he's all about these like flowy beads and all that, clothing, actual fantasy clothing. And people are basically, photoshopping, like, a character's faces on Jack's body. And like, yep, this is a game, this is a right game. So basically people are saying, this is like the easiest cosplay ever. All you gotta do is get a shirt just like Jack's, and then pants, and call it a day. So I guarantee you that whenever a con comes up and there's a lot of cosplay of it, there'll probably be a whole bunch of Jacks running around just for the lulz. So I'm really looking forward to that. Well, not really, but I'm like, that'd be funny if you see a whole bunch of it. They decided they had the same idea and this meme it somehow. But like, again, not very optimistic on this game, and this is probably a game I'm going to skip. Like, if it's like on sale for $15, I will probably get it, but of course it won't come out until next year, so it'll be quite a bit of time until I decide to even get my hands on it. And again, like Nomura said that apparently wanted the story of an angry man. I'm going to try to find that quote, but it was actually a translation from I forget what source it was, but like I said, I'll find a tweet that mentioned that, and they claimed that it was an official translation of it. It was actually reported in this article, and someone translated it from Japanese to English. But anyway, he's the game's character designer and of course the creative producer. And his announcement comment said that the announcement may have come as a surprise to you. Much of it is still shrouded in mystery. Nonetheless, this is an action game, so I suggest you play it to see what it's like. And of course, a trial version was released for a limited time, so he hopes that everyone enjoyed it. And also, Katsushige Nojima is also in charge of the story and scenario, and Daisuke Inoue is directing the game, and Jin Fujiwara is the producer. So, if you're a huge fan of Final Fantasy, I hope you look forward to it, but ultimately, like, I'm just gonna keep, expressing my disappointment of what we've gotten. And also, for those curious, Koei Temco Team Ninja is under Koei Temco, and for those with very good memory, they were involved with the Dissidia series, more or less involved with that game. And of course, the last Dissidia game we had was NT, which they ended support for about a year or two ago. And I think they actually turned the arcade version offline, but I'm pretty sure I think you can still play online mode on the PlayStation and Steam. But I was kind of hoping it was like another installment of Dissidia. That's what I was hoping for. Or again, Koei Temco, they're also responsible for a lot of the Dynasty Warriors game, if I remember correctly. So I thought it was going to be something like nothing Final Fantasy 1 related, but something that needs attention. Like, again, like I said, Final Fantasy 10. I'm biased. Like, a lot of people are gonna complain. So, well, Final Fantasy 10 had anything they needed, but like, no, I'm still keeping that dream alive. I know they're tired, but I'm keeping that dream alive. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Like, I've talked a little bit too much about. I think I talked more about me ranting about the decision in the game itself, so I apologize for that, but I'll probably make a blog post about it in the future, and I'll share it there for those that care to read it. And a little brief news concerning gaming from E3 is that the next fighter coming into the Smash Brothers game is Kazuya Kashima from the Tekken series, so he'll be the next fighter coming to the game from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Like, I'm out of the loop because there've been a few more fighters announced. I know Steve is in there. And I'm out of the loop. So Kazuya, though, he's the latest person to be announced. And of course, there was a trailer to Nintendo's own E3 showcase, and they're gonna have an extended, I guess a stream rather, featuring Kazuya on June 28th at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're all curious about what he brings to the game, that's when you should check it out. And especially for those that are huge Tekken and Ultimate fans, be sure to look forward to that. And he's going to be featured in the Fighters Pass Volume 2 for those that are wanting to keep up with the DLC. So that's all I have for Kazuya's involvement. And also, this was actually announced back in February, and as I talk about this, I'll have to find the exact dates, because the dates have been announced, but at the time these were speculative. So, these are about the new Pokemon games. Well, one is actually new, but the others are remakes. So, the newest game is Pokemon Legends Arceus, which it's a game that takes place around the era of the games I'm about to talk about. And I think it's more of an RPG, open world RPG. Well, of course, with Pokemon elements. Of course, you can't, it has to have Pokemon elements. And then, but the game in question, though, that's being remade is the Diamond and Pearl games, which were originally released for the DS. And I'm actually looking forward to the Diamond and Pearl remakes, because I'm ashamed to say that I actually missed out on Diamond and Pearl, because I was coming out strong from playing Blue, Gold, and Silver. Well, I think it's Silver. I think I have Silver. Yeah, Silver. So I have Blue, Silver, and then Sapphire. Those are the games I played. So I pretty much stuck through it up until Gen 3, and then I even bought Diamond. But unfortunately, I never got a chance to play it. I never really got a chance to enjoy it, because it was during the time I was in a rough spot, and I just had to deal with it, and I never came back to it. So for it to come for the Switch, I'm actually really looking forward to it, especially since I'm still on my high from playing Sword and Shield, which is my first Pokemon game in since the original releases of Diamond and Pearl. So I'm really looking forward to getting back into Gen 4. So anyway, so more about the original announcement, because we didn't have any more information on E3, weirdly enough, but for those that are now just hearing about it, so back during their Pokemon Day live stream back in February, the game Pokemon Legends Arceus is going to be released in early 2022. And by early 22, that's January 28th. Of course, that could change if something unusual happens. So again, for Arceus, it says it will feature a more open 3D style reminiscent of the wild area in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and the game will take place in the past of the Sinnoh region from the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl games. The story will also involve the mythical Pokemon Arceus. Starter Pokemon include Rowlet, Cyndaquil, and Oshawott. And for the Diamond and Pearl remakes, they will be released on November 19th, 2021. So that's like at least a few more months out. Of course, it's still kind of far out if you're listening to this as soon as this episode's released. But of course, with half of the year I'm already over with, it's just, a matter of time before this game comes out. And the company also announced that Pokemon Home, or ILCA, is developing the remakes, and the company Yuichi Ueda and Game Freak's Junichi Masuda are directing the games. And of course, the original Diamond and Pearl games were released for the DS in Japan in 2006, and in the West in 2007. So yeah, it was a lot of things going on at that time. I think that's actually when I moved, so that's why I didn't really. I wasn't in my right mind to play it at the time. I still have the games in the DS. I could play it right now, but I'm just gonna wait and experience it in full 3D and updated graphics. I'm really looking forward to that, and I'll talk more about it when more information comes out. But again, this is actually old news technically, but we didn't really have a release date up until a few weeks ago, but nothing significant from E3, so that's it was a surprise to a lot of people, but it's probably I think we have what we needed to know so far, but I'm pretty sure the biggest is going to be on Arceus, since that's a new game completely, although it's still in the universe of Diamond and Pearl. So again, I'll keep everyone posted when that information comes out. So going into our music news, this is something that was also reported earlier this year from... Actually, I would have talked about it in a previous episode if I released it on time, but it's worth repeating now because it kind of had a significant contribution to the anime fandom in the past 20 years, and this actually is the 20th anniversary since their release of their the one album that a lot of anime fans from that generation will remember, and especially since Toonami excuse me, they play their music videos in particular that were actually directed by Leiji Matsumoto, and I'm sure y'all know who I'm going to talk about, and that's Daft Punk. And the sad news about Daft Punk is that after 28 years of being a duo, they finally split up. They're actually known as individually. It's Guy Manuel de Homem Cristo, and the other one's Thomas Banerjee. They make up the duo, and individually they have released music outside of their persona that we all know and love. And I think Thomas Banerjee actually released a single earlier this year, and it was on Spotify briefly, but now it's unavailable. I'm pretty sure it's just unavailable outside of the US. It's kind of weird, but anyway. Yeah, so I know they release music individually, but as a duo, they're no longer making music. And, of course, they're from France, and they've been producing music together under Daft Punk since '93. They released 4 studio albums and have 2 live albums, in which they also composed the entire soundtrack for Tron Legacy. And for anime, of course, they're known for the... I've never figured out the actual way to say the name of this anime. I've watched it, though, and I really love it and I recommend it. It's Interstellar 5555, but I want to say 525. I figure it's easier to explain it. But anyway, it's basically the 4 fives translate to the story of the secret star system, which, is kind of a weird title. And, of course, that was directed by Leiji Matsumoto, who's famous from Battleship Yamato and Galaxy Express 999, and he supervised the art, and that told the story of an alien rock band being kidnapped to perform hit songs on Earth. And they even make an animated cameo in the anime. And of course, again, back in 2001, Toonami aired they aired those music videos of the first 4 title tracks of the Discovery album, which is One More Time, Aerodynamic, Digital Love, and Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. I hope I got that right, because I still have that fairy album from when it was released. So, but no, like Cartoon Network, like Toonami back in the day, they actually aired those music videos, but they had like basically made a day out of it. And they aired those, and they also aired the music videos for the Gorillaz' first album. That included Clint Eastwood and 192000, and I think Tomorrow Becomes Today. I think I remember that. I think that's the right title for that one track. But yeah, I remember that, and because of that, I actually bought the Gorillaz' first album and the Discovery album from Daft Punk. The most recent contribution Daft Punk made that I've been trying to think of as I'm talking about this is to The Weeknd's Starboy album, and that's actually my favorite album. And I want to focus because we're almost done with this, and we got one more story to talk about, and this is another old news story that I've talked about. I've not really talked about. I've talked about it in one form or another, but I think I haven't talked about it at all. So actually, I guess what I meant to say is that I meant to talk about it last episode or a while back, but it never came to light. But I will talk about that it actually happened, just so that everyone was like, did that happen? Like, what happened? So back in February, a huge chunk of K-pop songs were missing from Spotify's global catalog, and the distributor in question is Kakao M, which I think they own like a significant share of the K-pop market now, because I know, of course, I forget what it used to be. I think they own Melon. That's what it is. Kakao M owns Melon, and Melon was their own company, but apparently they bought a stake in it, and now it's like part of their brand. But the article, which is from Korea Boo, mentions that with 35% share of the global music streaming market, Spotify is one of the most popular streaming services in the world. And, I guess what I was trying to say is that they did, what I talked about earlier, that Spotify launched in Korea. So I think this is what this is all about. So the platform has always been a popular choice of K-pop fans who have, they were left reeling after learning that K-pop songs distributed by Kakao M have been removed from all Spotify territories worldwide. So at the beginning of February, Spotify launched their platform in South Korea, where of course they have their own services like Genie, Melon, and even Mnet for years. It's been a staple in Korea for years, but it says from day one, no music distributed by Kakao M was available for streaming on Spotify Korea. And that's probably because Kakao M is in charge of Spotify's competitor, Melon, which I mentioned, a few moments ago. And naturally, Korean fans who'd been hoping to try the service were disappointed. But now, international fans are being punished. And at the beginning of March, all the songs distributed through Kakao M were removed globally. And Kakao M distributes music for many of the biggest K-pop acts. Like, it was a huge list, but I had to shorten it just for the podcast. I'm pretty sure I want to be rambling about this. So, Mamamoo, 17, IU, Monsta X, and G-Friend or Yoja Chingu, they were missing from their catalog. And also a few others, even Epic High, which, they're my all-time favorite group. And even Tableau from Epic High had a say in it. Like he said, why is it always artists and the fans that suffer when businesses place greed over art? So, at the time, Spotify or Kakao M had, as of that article, they hadn't said anything about why they were removed. But of course, it turned out it was a licensing issue. That's where it ended up turning into. And it was resolved in a week or two. So, right now, a lot of these artists you can listen to right now. But also, what's weird, apparently they had to re-upload a lot of the songs, too. So, even some songs I had on my playlist they weren't on there anymore, or they were still grayed out. But if you search for the artist, they have a newer version of that song out. So like, it was really weird. But again, like one of the things, like I've talked about this before in a previous episode, and well, even I think I talked a bit about it in a previous episode. I also wrote a blog post about it. Like when it comes to Asia and digital streaming platform, it's like one country like Korea, they got it right. And of course, there will be some issues when it comes to licensing, and of course, even in the U.S., we have that too. But Japan is just so close off. It's kind of surprising that a lot of the biggest acts, they have fans outside of Japan, but some of the record labels like Johnny's in particular are very strict when it comes to like some of their distribution rights, and of course it kind of reflects on their artists too. So it's I guess this is like one of the issues you have when it comes to like what Tableau says, is that businesses worry about their own bottom line instead of what fans love. So like I said, it's been of course long resolved, but there might be some songs missing. But again, like I said, it's still like a game of when it comes to corporate bottom line. So yeah, as far as Japan too, like I actually need to do a follow up on it, because I've noticed at the end of last year, I think it was at least the end of last year, I finally found some Japanese artists on Spotify that were previously Japan only, or actually they were probably never on Spotify in either country, but they're finally available now. And I'm going to try to talk a bit about it if I remember to, because I've been meaning to talk about it, but I got busy and I totally forgot about it. So I'm like really excited to talk about it at some point. But I'm just going to leave it at that. So yes, be sure to support your artists, whether streaming or digital downloads. Like, digital downloads is still a thing. Spotify is definitely a way to get attention too. So be sure to make your interest known by streaming it whenever possible. And that also marks the end of this episode, and I do have a bit of, I guess, notable mentions to talk about, and I want to try to talk about some of them probably in the next episode, but they're mostly streaming news. So Be the Beginning, they had their second season recently on Netflix, which is already available on Netflix. And the first season of it rather was actually pretty good, and I recommend watching it. I need to do a review on it, because I didn't watch it like in one sitting, so to speak, or rather I watched it like months at a time, weeks at a time, each episode, even though it's like a 12 episode series. I have yet to watch the second season, but I recommend it. And also there's a service called Tubi TV that added a few of like lesser known anime series. One of them is is Dr. Slump, which is kind of a surprise, because I actually really I've read the manga of Dr. Slump, and for those that don't know what Dr. Slump is about, it's one of the first manga that Akira Toriyama released before he went to work on Dragon Ball. And other anime that were mentioned on for release on Tubi include Saint Seiya Hades, and a few other that we know about is One Piece, Toriko, and Slam Dunk. Well, Slam Dunk is actually kind of rare, but we also have Gegege no Kitaro, and another Saint Seiya series, Scientia Show. I hope I pronounced that right. Be sure to check that out. I'll link it in the honorable mentions in the show notes. And that is it for this episode. Thank you for toughing it out with me, putting up with my rants about the new Final Fantasy game. I did a pretty good job keeping this episode as short as I could, and at just under an hour. So I hope you enjoy enjoy shows like this, and I try to keep them as short as I can compared to last year. And the next episode I will have quite a few more news tidbits to share that I put off, considering how late I was with the episodes. And also I am going to talk about another news story that I've been wanting to talk about, but it needs its own episode, and I'm pretty sure you probably know what I'm going to talk about. or maybe not. I don't know. You'll figure it out when it comes out. So thank you for listening, and if you are curious as to what other stuff I have to talk about when it comes to Centaku Media, be sure to follow Centaku Media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Centaku Media. And also there's a YouTube channel which you can find under the name Centaku-chan. And also be sure to watch Centaku Media Plays on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Centaku Media. Every other week out of the month, I take a break from streaming, but you can watch streams on Wednesday at 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays at 9 p.m. I hope to see you there in a future stream, and until next time, so long.